Hey everyone, John with Semplice here, and today we have an exciting new tutorial for you. We are going to be building out a portfolio site completely from scratch using Semplice. I'm going to walk you through the entire site building process from start to finish. It's going to be a lot of fun, and you'll see just how simple it is to put together a really beautiful portfolio site. And for those not familiar, Semplice is a visual portfolio building tool used by some of the world's most talented creatives and designers. And the best part about it is there's no templates. It's completely visual. And really, the idea is just about anything that you can think up or design, you can build it in Semplice. You don't need to know code, and you can have a lot of fun doing it. All right, so for the purpose of this tutorial, we've actually already designed out an example portfolio site, and this is what we'll be recreating today. It features the lovely work of Ana, and as you can see, we have this really nice portfolio grid on the home page. If I click one of these projects, you can see we have this nice little case study, some embedded content. We're using this before and after slider. We've got this nice little gallery grid of images. We're also using some nice features like this previous next feature that comes with Semplice. You can see it's just really great for navigating through projects. If I hit the menu here, we have this nice overlay menu. We've got a really beautiful about page. And then lastly, I'm just going to show some different ways you can add some variation and customizations to your portfolio site to really take it to the next level. And before going any further, I just want to give a special shout out to a Semplice family member, Ana. Thank you, Ana, for allowing us to feature your beautiful work in today's tutorial. If you have not checked out her work previously, I highly recommend checking out her portfolio. She does some really stunning illustration work. All right, well, let's jump into our tutorial. Right now I'm on the WordPress dashboard. I have a fresh copy of WordPress installed. If you're not sure how to install WordPress, most hosting companies will install WordPress for you with just a click. So I recommend, if you're wondering how to get started in hosting and all that, I highly recommend checking out our support guides, because we have a lot of support on how to install WordPress, how to, pick the right hosting. So just for the sake of this tutorial, though, we're going to assume you already have a working WordPress install. So the first thing we're going to do is install Semplice. We're going to go here on the left-hand side under Appearance and Themes. I'm going to click Add New Theme here. Then up top, I'm going to hit Upload Theme, choose File, and I already have my Semplice 5 theme file. And I'm going to install this. Once it's installed, we can click Activate right here. And we get this really nice little walkthrough to get Semplice up and running. So first, we have the option to use day or night mode. I'm going to click night mode. All right, and then from the name, I'm just going to grab Ana's name here from the demo site. Put her name in. Click next. And since she's an illustrator, I'm going to put that as my profession here, and it's going to show up in my site tagline. And now we have the option to choose a navigation preset. So I'm just going to choose this one for now. Creating pages. Semplice is automatically going to create some pages for me, as well as a project to start out with. So just hitting next. All right, start building. Let's jump in. And here we have the Semplice dashboard. So the first thing I typically like to do from here is click this Activate Now if your license isn't activated, and then just put in my license information. And this is just going to ensure that I always get the latest theme updates and features. Okay, so now we're back at the dashboard. Let's just check out some of these links up top. First, you have pages. That's for things like your about page or home page. Next, you have projects. As you can see, Semplice has already generated one for me. And then this is the customize area. So this relates to everything to customizing the look and feel of your site. I like to start off any project with installing my web font. So let's go ahead and just click this web fonts, click add your first web font. And there's a couple different methods. I'm going to use the self-hosted method to upload my font. I'm going to give it an internal name here. And then I've already had some fonts I've uploaded here in the media library. So I'm just going to select these two. And then Semplice automatically recognized the font names and uploaded them. And let's just quickly do the other two here. And there are all my fonts. They're all ready to go. They've been named according to the font name. So clicking add, and then I can see here, just preview all of them. They're looking good. Nice. Okay, so we have our web fonts. And the next thing I'm going to do is create my navigation. Now we have this default one we set up, but our demo site is using a right aligned hamburger style menu. So I'm actually going to choose this one right here. And you can see it's unstyled default navigation. Let's just start customizing this out. I'm going to give it an internal name. Just call it main navigation. I'm going to set it to be the default. I'm going to quickly set a preview background color to help me as I'm designing. And for the logo, since we don't have a logo in the demo, it's just the hamburger, I'm actually going to change this logo to be a transparent color with 0 font size, and that's going to just basically make it invisible. I want this to be a fluid nav, and I don't want our hamburger to brush up against the browser edge, so I'm going to give it some horizontal padding. Let's head over to the menu tab here, and here is where the magic happens. I've just set this to be a hamburger style menu, and we don't have to worry about any of these settings, so I'm just going to jump over to the overlay mobile because this is the actual menu that's going to show up when we click the hamburger. And I'm just going to start styling this out, give it a background color, and set the text link colors here to match our demo site. Give it a font, and we'll just bump up the size here. Something that feels right. You can adjust. All right, so these settings all look good. Let's actually customize the hamburger itself. I have the option now to set 2 images for the hamburger when it's in an open and closed state. So I have these dots here. Let's just make it the white dot when it's open, black when it's closed. Actually, that's not. Looks like the demo is the opposite. Whoops. So let's just quickly swap these out here. Okay, so by default, it's the black dot. When it's open, the white one. I'll hit save. And now that we all have this set up, let's start actually building out that home page. So I'm going to head over to pages, and let's create a new page for the home page. I'm going to just call it home. And here you see we have this empty state for this page. Nothing has been created yet. If this is your first time using Semplice, I definitely recommend, just getting familiar with the editor and exploring some of the different icons up here in the top, just to get a feel for how the drag and drop editor works. And let's just actually keep a tab open of the example site that we're going to be building so we can just reference things as we go along. The first thing we're going to do is create this nice scrolling effect, this top section up here. So what I'm going to do is actually drag an image here with the image module. Let's go to upload media. I have a little folder with all my assets here already. So the image is It's pretty high resolution, so it's going to be used on our homepage and a lot of scrolling. I've made sure it's a really tall dimensions, nothing low resolution. Let's insert it. And first thing I'm going to go to is the section area. And I'm going to set the layout to fluid and remove the gutters. Now what that's going to do is make sure the image is flush against the browser edge. There's no spacing on either side, as you can see in the demo site. So next, let's create the text section that's going to be pinned on the page. I just dragged in a paragraph module, and real quick, let's add a background color to the entire page here. Clicking up top, assign the background color. Going back to the paragraph module, I'm going to assign a white color here. Center the text. And then let's just look at this again. I'm just going to copy this, paste it in. Oh, looks like it reset the color since I pasted in something new, but let's just reassign it. And let's bump up the text size here. I'll probably do around 200, yeah. And that's looking about right. Let me just assign the font. There we go. I'll just adjust this a little bit more. It looks like it needs to be just a little bit less than the main since it's a really big headline. That looks good. Let's just tighten the kerning a little bit. Check that out. It's looking pretty close. Being a little bit of a perfectionist here, but want to get it as close as possible. Let's take the last name, highlight it, assign the GT super font. And I think we could go maybe even a little bit tighter on the line height to match the example. All right, so that's looking pretty good. Let's go over to the section, and we actually need to make this full screen. So that's going to automatically make the height of the section the entire browser height. So let's also add some spacing up top. So I've selected the text module and adding some top spacing to it, just so it's not touching the top of the browser. And let's add our subheader beneath. So I'm going to select this, assign a color, assign the font style. I'm going to copy this. And a little trick if you want to preserve your text style, just paste everything in before that first letter and it'll preserve whatever font style you've assigned before. Let's center it and bump the sizing up. Let's just try to match that. Looks like the line height's a little bit tighter on this. Just going back and forth. It's looking pretty good. Maybe darken it just a little bit there. And then I'll save that. Now we don't actually want the subheader to span the width of the screen. So what I'm going to do is go back to the section options. I'm going to add some spacing just to match here. Kind of get that as close as possible. Let's bump it up. So I'm artificially adding some spacing. Now you'll see when I actually try to adjust the subheader's width, it's gonna change the top header's width as well, and we really don't want that. We want it to stay centered. So I'm gonna go to the section options here. Let's change the horizontal alignment to center line, and that's gonna keep both text modules centered when we reduce the width. So as you can see now, it's centering as it shrinks, but we still have the issue of the top section shrinking as well. So what we need to do is grab the subheader, and I'm just going to drag it into an additional row here. So now it's in a separate row from the larger one, and as I shrink it now, you can see it's doing it independently from the top paragraph module. So that's looking really good. It's looking close to our demo here. I'm just gonna check that for reference. Looks like I just hit Shift Enter just to bring that top line down to the next one. And let's just try to adjust the spacing here to match our demo site a little bit more. Let's increase the vertical height. And let's reference that. Now it looks like we went a little too much space there. So I'm going to hit undo here, undo my changes, go back to what we had before. And by adding some top spacing here, it's actually going to push that subheader down closer to the bottom of the screen. And let's decrease some of this spacing here now. And this is all looking good. I'm happy with this. So let's go back to our example site and let's figure out how to create this kind of fixed scrolling effect on this text. So luckily, there is actually an article on how to do this. If you go to help.semplice.com, we have what's called a hack article on how to create this. So that just means something that's not included in the Semplice functionality, but with a little bit of CSS magic, you can create this effect. I'm going to go to, let's just search for it, fixed. And then you'll see this article, creating fixed or pin elements on a page. And you can see in the article an example of this exact effect that we want. I'm going to scroll here. And this is really the magic that's going to power this. Is just simple little lines of CSS code. I'm going to copy it. We're going to go to the Look at Field tab, and in the Custom CSS section, we can add some custom CSS for this entire page. I'm going to paste that in. And now I'm going to go to this text section options under miscellaneous. I'm going to assign it a custom class name of the same one that's referenced in the CSS that we just pasted in. And that's going to trigger the CSS to affect this entire section, basically. Let's add some bottom spacing. And this should be enough to get this effect working. We're going to hit save, and then I'm going to do this preview button. Now you can see the effect is working quite beautifully, just like we wanted it to. The only issue is this top spacing here. So what we need to do is go to the Look at Field tab, and there's actually an option to display the content straight on top of your page. So what that's going to do is ignore our navigation height and put our content overlaid behind it. So that fixes that issue. There's our nice overlay menu being triggered, and you can really see how easy it was to add like a really cool custom effect on our page. Next, let's continue with our build out. So next we have this like headline section introducing our portfolio. I'm just going to drag the paragraph module into a new section like we did before. And I'm going to give this section a background color. And let's go ahead and just add some vertical spacing here. Probably want to do about the 60 value here. Like before, we'll assign a color, center the text. And let's just go back to our reference. So I'm going to copy the text there. And let's bump up the sizing, adjust the line height a little bit, assign that Mason bold, just tighten up a little bit of this spacing. And it's two fonts, so I'm just going to highlight this text right here, and we're going to assign it the serif. That's looking pretty close. I'm happy with that. So let's just continue on with our build out. I'm going to add some spacing below this text module. All right, so now let's move on to the heart and soul of your portfolio site, which is the portfolio grid as you see here. I'm going to go to this modules tab and drag a new portfolio grid onto the home page. And it's already going to generate out a grid. Let's adjust the spacing here. And you can see there's our first project already right here in the grid. Let's assign it a thumbnail. So I'm going to click the icon, and then this is the project we're going to eventually recreate. And then I'll add thumbnail here, upload media. Let's open up my assets folder again. I'm going to add this image right here. Insert media. And I want this project to span the width of the screen, so I'm going to assign it a column width of 12 because Semplice works in a 12 column grid. Let's give it a project name, project type. We'll give it a permalink. This will be the URL people go to view the project. Let's just go ahead and add a category for it. If you want, you can filter your portfolio by categories, so that's something you can experiment with. But for our purposes, this should be good for now. I'm going to hit save, and then it regenerated this grid. You can see now we have the thumbnail assigned. And let's start styling out the project title and category. Beneath the thumbnail, I'm going to select the portfolio module again. And under title formatting, let's just give it our main header font. Give it a color here. Type formatting, assign the color. And we'll just keep the project display standard. Hit refresh. There you can see our new text styling. So let's just adjust this a little bit more to match our example. I think it's a little bit larger. Bump this up a little bit, and we'll see how that looks. Pretty close. Looks like it's just that little project title needs to be just a little bit smaller with the headline. And it should be about right. Okay, we'll hit refresh. And that's looking pretty close. Okay, cool. Now let's start filling out this portfolio grid with some more projects. So I'll go hit exit, back to dashboard. I'm going to save our changes, very important. Go to the projects area, and let's just start adding some of these projects that we see from our example. Just going to start adding all of these. Once again, give it the type, and then add a thumbnail. And I'll look for the square thumbnail. Whoops, that one's not square. Let's go back. Yeah, it's really important that all your thumbnails, by the way, are sized consistently. That way they're flush in this portfolio grid, as you can see. Let's just go ahead and actually upload all the rest of the thumbnails that we need here. Again, they're all consistently sized. I'm going to add this one, and it's created this blank project, but we're not going to work on that right now. So let's just add all of our projects, and I'm just jumping ahead to where I've added all of them in. So let's go back to our home page here, and we should see our portfolio grid. There we go. Yeah, you can see it's all populated with the projects we created. Looks like the order is incorrect, but for now, let's just start assigning the widths. I'm gonna assign a width of 6 to each of these top ones because 6 would be 50%. Again, since Semplice works on a 12 column grid. And as you can see, it's starting to look like our demo. Whoops, looks like over here I used the wrong thumbnail, so I'm just gonna trash that, and let's find the right square thumbnail for that. Insert And there, once it's refreshed, you can see we have all the right sizing. Let's go ahead and address the project sorting issue here. I'm gonna jump over to the projects tab and let's just move this around. Do some drag and drop action. I think that's the order it should go. Yeah. Okay, let's preview our homepage again. I'm just gonna hit the preview icon. There's a nice scroll effect. And there is our portfolio grid. And it's looking really, really beautiful. Matching up to our demo nicely. So now we just got to get that nice hover effect when you hover the thumbnail. So we're going to go to customize thumb hover. Our example just has a simple scale and effect. So let's just set the color opacity to 0 and then we'll enable this scale thumbnail. We'll try out the defaults and just see how that looks. It might be a little too much, but we'll see how it looks. Scrolling on down. Yeah, it just seems a little bit fast and a little too much of the zoom effect. So we'll go back over here and let's maybe put this down to like 10 and let's bump this up to like 600. I think that's going to look good. I'll refresh the page here. And there we go. That's looking good. That's like matching the example pretty well. I'm happy with that. So next, let's actually build out our first project case study. So I'm going to go over to projects here. And just for the sake of this demo, we're just going to do one. We'll select this first project. Once again, we have this blank screen. Let's look at our example. So the first thing we want to create is this parallaxing top section. But before we do anything, let's just actually set a background color for the entire page. Give it a nice cream color. Next, click this cover tab and set to visible. And we'll choose a preset. And this is going to create that top section, that top cover section. Let's just add our image. There's our image. You can change the alignment, but let's just stay with the default. Cover effect, we're going to set it to parallax so that the image has some movement as it scrolls. And then we can assign the scroll down icon. So that's the button people will press to get to the project content. I've got this custom one I've just assigned here. And let's just go ahead, save and preview. And there you can see we have that top cover section with the nice parallaxing in our icon. Next, let's build out this kind of introduction area. Once again, we're just going to drag text module like we did before. We'll go to the section options and add some top spacing. A good trick is to just usually keep these a number in your head to keep these consistent. In this case, usually 60 or 80 is what I'm using. I'll center this. Let's change the size, assign our font. I think it's Mason. Increase that spacing, letter spacing, and we'll give it that kind of interesting burnt orange color, kind of a mustardy yellow. And next we'll add the main title, copy that, paste it in, center, assign the font. We want this to be fairly large. Looks about right. Gonna tighten up that line height. Yeah, let's shrink down this spacing, nice and tight kerning, and then assign our secondary header font. That's looking pretty good. I think I want my example just a little bit wider. I'm not kind of happy with how it's kind of bunching up in our example. Okay, that's looking good. Let's add a little bit of spacing here. Get a little breathing room. Maybe it could go a little bit more. Probably shrink this down just a little bit. And let's add this bottom spacing. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Maybe, okay, I'm being a perfectionist now. Just add, it's all about the pixels. Okay, there we go. Looking good. Next, let's drag a horizontal spacer here. That's going to create that little hyphenated line. I've added it into a new row. If you remember, as before, we want to add things into a new row if we want to change the width without affecting the other elements. I'm going to go to section options. Let's just make everything centered. Scale this down. Probably want around 2 columns. And we'll assign the color. I've got my hex values on hand. And let's try a height of 2. It looks like our example is 1, so we'll just make it 1. And I'm just going to add some spacing around it to match our example. That looks about right. All about the details, folks. Okay, copy that. We'll drag a paragraph module below that in another separate row so that the width doesn't affect all the others. And let's center this. And you know, one thing you can do, this is important to note before I do anything else, is we don't have any default text styles assigned. So actually just hit this menu and I'm going to jump over to typography. And this is going to be really helpful. As you can see here, you can assign default text stylings for everything. So, you know, for example, you have your header or paragraph. So if I just turn on header here, I can actually assign default styling. So whenever you drag a headline or assign a headline, it's just going to use these default values. So it's just really great. It's going to save you a ton of time and also ensure your font stylings are consistent throughout your site. So let's just style the default paragraph font. It's going to be Maison New Book. Try to match it to our example site. Looks about, maybe it could go, increase, open up that letter spacing. I mean, it's pretty close. Just line height. I think it looks pretty close. All right, let's jump back to our project here. And now I'm just gonna delete this out actually, and then drag a new paragraph module. And you can see now it's using that default styling that we assigned just now. So yeah, just a really handy trick. I'm gonna center this. Once again, there's our stylings. And let's just shrink down the width. There we've got it matched to our example. And just shrink this down as well, even though it's not visually changing much. You can see we can match it to our example if we wanted to, but I'm just going to leave it a little wider. Let's add this embedded YouTube video now. So I'm just going to, let's actually just click open this video in YouTube. And you can't see it, but I'm just going to grab the full URL to this YouTube video. And I'll go to modules here. And I'm going to drag, oh wait, no, it's not self-hosted. What am I looking for? Oh, embed. Let's drag this embed for an embedded content. And the link, just paste in that YouTube link. You don't have to change anything. It's already 16:9 aspect ratio. It's just the default. And we'll preview. And there it is. That's really that simple. Just embed content. Let's go ahead and add some spacing here. And then, let's see. Let's check out the example again. And we want to create this kind of before and after slider, which is a nice little feature in Semplice. It's great for like comparing before and afters if you do like 3D renderings or photography. It's really nice. So I just dragged that below this. Let's add some spacing between these elements. And I'm just going to upload our before and after image. Wait, no, those aren't the two. There we go. And I'll assign this as the before image. And then, oh wait, no, we want this one. Yeah, our snake guys, the after. And you have, you have options now to customize the start position of the slider. In this case, I kind of want it offset a little bit. You can also customize like the handlebar width and, change the arrows. I'm gonna keep this one pretty close to the default because I think that's what our example uses. And there we go. It's really cool. A little slider thing. Yeah, I think this is looking good. Let's go back to our example. And we just have this paragraph module with some image thumbnail. So drag the paragraph. Once again, it's using that default paragraph styling. So that's saving us a lot of time. I don't have to style anything. It's just already done for me. Shrink down the width here. Probably wanted about 7. And then add some spacing below our before and after module. And so we get a little bit more on this. And we'll add some more here. And then to create this little grid of images, I'm going to go to the add image and just start adding some images. If you wanted like a slider format more than like a grid, you could always use the gallery slider module. I encourage you to explore all the different modules that we offer in Semplice, but this one is just simple image grid. I totally forgot the order of these. Okay, that one's first. I'm just going to hit the duplicate button to duplicate that module. Duplicate again and duplicate again. And looks like we need to add some. Oh, first I got to change these. I'm still messed up on the order. Okay, that one is that one. Little guy's face here. I mean, seriously, how fun are these visuals? Nice. Okay. Now let's add spacing below the thumbnails. I'm adding 30 because it looks like that's what the gutter column width is. And this is actually more spacing than it should be. Our example is a little bit tighter than this. So as you can see, there's like an additional spacing. So what we're going to do is actually hit the flyout menu and we're going to hit the grid here because I think our example site is actually using smaller gutter widths for the columns. So clicking grid, you have the ability to change the default grid. I'm going to actually change this gutter width. I think our example is using about 20. So let's save that. go back to our project. And it should be, there we go. Yeah. Okay, there it's tighter now. Looks like that's matching up really nicely now. And then I'm gonna just adjust these vertical spacings. And yeah, there it's matching our example. And let's create this back button. Now, in this example, it's using a text module with a hyperlink assigned to it. But I'm just gonna use a Semplice button here because it's easier. Just for our purposes, we'll add some spacing. And I'll just assign this a label, just paste in the back with the arrow, all in one line now. We'll set the link type to page. Let's keep it in the same tab. We don't want it opening in a new window. And well, it looks like my home page is labeled work. We'll change that later. And then I'm going to set the background type to transparent because we just want it to look like a text link. I'm going to assign it our font, bump up the size a little bit to match our example. And looks about right. Paddings, we can just kind of leave that default. And then let's change the hover effect. We don't want any hover effects when we hover over it. You can also change the letter spacing, but just make sure, I'm just going to make sure it matches the initial state as well. Just leave that all as is. And next we want to create this kind of like footer thing that starts before the very bottom of our project. Let's go to the editor. I'm going to drag a new text module. Once again, the old paragraph module, our friend. And let's just add that year. Assign the font. Tweak the spacing. Check our example. And let's add that spacer in between. Shrink this width here. And I'm going to put it in a new row, a new section actually I should say, because I just want this to be its own section entirely from the content above it. That way I can use it later for other purposes. We'll drag an image into this third column here. I've got my logo in SVG format. We'll just insert that. Center. Oh, you can. That's a little bit big, so let's just go back and make that the original image width. We don't want it covering the entire column width. Shrink this back down again. Expand this to 8. Once again, working in multiples of 12. Let's size down the spacer. Set it to 1 and change the opacity here in the miscellaneous styling options. It's looking good. And then let's just align all this content. Once again, going to section options, layout, making this horizontally aligned. And then let's size down this logo. It's a little large, so what I'm gonna do is add some left spacing. And if you add enough, it'll start shrinking down because you're increasing the spacing around it. So that's just one way you can size things down in Semplice. Checking our example, looking pretty good. Let's get this little bottom tagline here. I'm just gonna drag another paragraph module into a separate row. Within the same section, paste in our text here. And let's style this text to match our example. Size this down, assign the font. Let's get a little, there we go. Size it down. Tighten that kerning up. That looks about right. Let's give this its own color and font. All right, so now we have that in place. Let's actually highlight this text and hit the insert link button. So this is where you can insert a hyperlink to that text. You can literally put in any URL that you want. Let's actually put in Ana's actual real portfolio site URL. Once again, I want to thank Ana for letting us use her work in our tutorial video today. If you haven't checked out her actual site and work, I definitely recommend checking it out. And let's just add these little social links below that. Go to modules and social profiles. So we'll just add that right directly underneath. Add some spacing. Make sure this is selected now. Scale it down. Reduce the padding. Assign a link color. Hover can just stay black. Distribution, we'll just leave that the default, and then let's start adding our social profiles. I'll just clear out the default ones here, and then Instagram, Behance, where is it? There it is, and then Dribble. Okay. Now you can see it's populated with those icons. And normally, you just click this and then you can add, your username to link it up properly. I'm just going to leave that blank for now for our example purpose. Scale this up just a little bit, add a little bit more spacing above. Okay, it's looking good. And now we'll save that. Preview our page. And this project page is looking really nice. It's got a little bit of functionality, nice image grid. The only thing is this bottom section. We have not styled our previous next or project panel. So let's go back to the editor. And from here, let's go exit our page, back to our pages area, and let's jump over to the customize area. Go to project nav, and you can see that this is all unstyled at the moment. So I'm going to go to the project panel and set the visibility to hidden for now because we don't want that. We just want to show previous next only. I'm going to assign the width to fluid here. Let's give it a background color to kind of match the projects. And let's start with a 500 pixel height. Spacing, I'm not going to mess with that for right now. Well, no, actually I will give it a little bit. It looks like there's none on the bottom in our example, so I'm just going to leave the bottom at 0. And then thumbnail options, we do want our thumbnails visible like in our example, so I'm going to turn this to visible. And I'm going to keep the scale at cover right now. And then you also have the option to change the before and next labeling. So there's some different options, but let's just stick with the arrows with the project title. I'm going to center justify the text. And I'm going to set the text position to above. And I'm going to size down the label here. Assign our font. That's looking pretty nice. Just add some spacing around the text. And then subheader, we don't need to style that. Separator is like if you want to, if you want to have like separation between these, you can. Since we have thumbnails, I'm just gonna turn that off as well. Jumping to our project page, let's just preview how this is looking. That's really nice. All we need now is like a little simple hover effect like in our demo. So let's go back over to project nav, and let's also adjust the height a little bit. Seems a little bit tight right now, so I'm going to crease that. Refresh. There's a little bit more vertical space to match our example. It's looking pretty good. Now let's add that mouse over effect. I'm just going to make it dim down hovered like in the demo example at 50 opacity. Hit refresh, and there's a nice little hover effect. So this is looking really good. I'm happy with how this turned out. And jumping back to the project page, there's just one more thing I'd like to do, and that is turn this bottom section into a Semplice footer. Now what that's going to do is make it more modular so that we can apply it to different projects and pages, as well as create variations of it. I've selected the section, and I'm going to hit this nifty button called Save as Block, and that's going to make it this reusable block that we can just drag anywhere to recreate this exact same layout. I'm going to set it to normal block, and hitting this flyout, you can see there's already pre-made blocks, which are really handy in Semplice for quickly building out a page. But if I click this My Blocks here, you can see the block I just created, and now you can see the exact same section duplicated, and just really powerful feature in Semplice. All right, so let's go to, there's actually a footer section in Semplice where you can create reusable footers to assign to each page. We're gonna, well, first let's go to our example, and you can see on our home page that there's this different colored footer. So we're gonna want to create multiple versions of our footer that we can assign to different pages. So I'm going to call this one footer light because we're using it for light backgrounds. I'm going to go to blocks, and I'm going to drag that custom footer block I created. Now let's go to the section options, and let's assign it that light cream color. Let's add some spacing to the bottom, because right now it's just flush up against the bottom of the screen. Probably don't need that much. Let's just make it 60. And then now I'm going to save it as another block, but this time I'm going to actually save it as a master block. And a master block is like the regular block, only it's now, if I place this anywhere else on the site and make changes, it's going to update the changes everywhere this block is being used. So this is also really handy if you want to keep consistency and you don't want to save and delete blocks. So what I'm going to do now is just delete this one, and then I'm going to place this master block here. Not the regular one, but the master block. And so if I was to make any changes to this right here, it would update in the footer or anywhere else this is being used. So really handy. Let's go back to our footer. I'm going to click Add New Footer. Actually, let's just publish this current one we have, and then footer dark. So this is going to be for like the home page where it's on a dark background. Go to blocks. I am not going to place the master. I'm going to place our regular saved block. And I'm just going to match it to this home page here. All right, let's let's match it with that background color. I'm going to assign that same background color on the home page. Let's add some bottom spacing like we did before. I'm going to change this to, actually it should be white. Let's change that to white. And change this to white as well. And then I'm going to swap this with a lighter version of our logo, which I need to upload. We recommend SVG for logos for highest quality, by the way. And then let's change this little divider. And that's looking good. It's matching up well. We'll publish this footer, go back to our home page. And then under the page settings, here we can assign the footer we just created. So I'm going to hit footer dark, save, and let's preview our home page. And nice. Let's see at the bottom, there is our new assigned footer. Now I noticed two issues with the home page here while I was looking. Firstly, we need to assign a color to the back to top arrow. Right now it's like the default black and it doesn't look good. So let's make it our link color. Preview the home page again, and now you see the back to top arrow is looking good. But you may have also noticed this kind of weird fading effect with the section. So that's because by default, there's a feature in Semplice called scroll reveal. And under the look and feel, we're just going to disable that. And checking out the home page again, now you can see there's none of that weird fading. Okay. Next, I want to show you, just clicking through one of these other projects, we're just going to recreate this one real quick because I want to show you how easy it is to just replicate layouts in Semplice. So let's go to this project right here, and it is blank. What we're going to do is right here in the center, you can use an existing project or page as a layout. So I've selected our first project, and as you can see, it's populated this entire page with our existing first project. So I'm just going to swap out some of these assets, change. Let's see, let's look at our example here. Just give this nice like pink color. Choose that right there. And actually I'm going to change the entire page background color. I forgot to do that. Okay, so now we got this nice pink page background color. And now let's just change the separator color. I'm going to match that up. These colors I'm just kind of eyeballing as close as I can to our example. Change the opacity down. And I'm just going to start clearing out some of this content since our example is just a very simple version. So I'm just going to delete these whole columns. It's a little bit faster. And now we have this footer. If you remember, it's got that light cream background color assigned to it. So we want this to be a little bit more modular. So what I'm going to do is just remove this background color. And again, since this is a master block, it's doing that for all of our projects. So now if I publish, hit preview, there's our project with the nice new footer. But now we also have the same issue with the previous and next page. So this is a good example of just showing you, how you can change things to be modular for different projects. And we'll just go over to, actually, we'll go right here to the background color, set this to be transparent. And so now for this and the footer, it's just going to use the default page background color that we've set. All right, so let's jump back to the dashboard, and next we're going to create this about page from our example demo. Semplice has already created an about page for us, so I'm just going to click into it. I'm going to assign a page background color to this nice kind of burnt orange color. Oops. And let's just grab this first column here, drag a paragraph module, paste in our text, remove this extra space here, assign the white color, and we'll shrink this column width down. And then, okay, now we have, let's look, next let's add that image. Actually, let's just increase the font size here. Change the line height. And I want to avoid this kind of widowed word at the very bottom here. So I'm just going to add a little bit of right spacing just to push some of this text a little bit more. So we avoid that. Next, let's add some spacing above it so it's not flush against the browser width. And let's add that image below. So I'm just going to drag that right underneath the existing text paragraph in the same module. It looks like it has this like kind of bordered effect around it. So let's add some spacing to the top, or I'm sorry, the bottom of the paragraph module. And let's just reuse the same image from the home page. And to get that little border effect, I'm going to go, yeah, okay, I'm going to go to border under styling. We'll start with like 10, see how that looks. Put in our hex value, and ours is looking a little bit thicker, so maybe we'll go with like 7 or 6. 7 looks about right. Yep. Okay, looking good there. Let's create our additional columns on the right. I'm going to drag in our text module, and we'll paste this in. And one thing to know, I actually want to keep this subheader in a separate text module. It's just going to help us organize things a little bit easier, and also will help us for responsive issues. So here's that column. I'm going to drag the subheader above it, and we'll add in our text above. And we'll style it. Yeah, it looks pretty different font here. There we go. Let's shrink it down just a little bit. And now let's style this text. It's going to be different than the default text, so it's a little bit smaller. So I'm just going to highlight that and shrink it down. Just some of this line height here. Then let's just add a little bit of separation. I'm gonna add some bottom spacing. This might be a little much. Let's shrink that down. Okay, that's matching pretty good. Now I noticed the columns aren't matching up exactly. We could add more spacing here, but actually I think what we need to do is just shrink this column. Yeah, there we go. And now we're going to add a spacer column here to add some white spaces and an offset. So that's how you create offsets in Semplice. Now this is matching up really nicely to our example. And what we can start doing is just, once again, let's shrink this down first actually. No, I'm being a bit of a perfectionist here, but it's all about the details, right? Okay, so that is looking good. Let's just start duplicating this content. I'm gonna place this directly beneath that column, and just add some spacing to the bottom of our list column, and it's going to add some spacing there. Let's go ahead and duplicate that, drag it beneath our subheader, and copy this content. Looking good. Fix that. And there we go. Okay, nice. Let's just create this last column right here. Gonna just rinse and repeat. Let's shrink this down a little bit more because it looks like, I know I keep going back and forth, but it just sometimes it's about tweaking the typography to really get everything looking as best possible and professional. Sometimes you just have to go back and forth until it looks right. Now that we dragged in the new column, it's kind of shifted these, so I'm just going to quickly readjust these columns, and looks like this one needs to be just a little bit wider here. Okay, that's matching pretty well. Let's swap out our content. Copy that. So you see, it's just so easy and Semplice to just create your own custom layouts. It's almost like working in a design program. Some people even prefer to design right in Semplice. They don't even design it out in a program first. So, you know, it's totally optional. It's up to you however you prefer it. Change that out. Whoops, can't type today. And we have this nice little email link. So what I'm going to do there, duplicate this, drag it under, and whoops, yeah, there we go. Okay, just gonna replace this with our text, and then I'm gonna actually highlight this, give it a link, and I'm going to give it a email mail to link, so that just tells the browser to open up the default email browser when that link is clicked. And then we're going to add one more social profile, just like we did for our footer. It's always just a good idea to have these in your about page so people can, you know, quickly find your social profiles. You know, I highly recommend including social links if you don't have one. It just really helps your portfolio to have somewhere where clients can kind of see your latest work and just see a little bit more of who you are. And that looks good. Just gonna adjust the spacing. And then once again, quickly, just going to add in our default profiles here. And let's compare. Okay, looking pretty good. Now we just gotta add this footer in. Normally I would assign our dark footer background, but this one's a little bit different because we don't have our social links, right? So I'm just gonna drag that existing block I created previously, and I'm just gonna modify it just a little bit to match what I see here. Looks like we can swap out the logo, and we can delete this, and we can delete the social profile since it's already on this page, and I'm going to drag it in the middle. Let's shrink this down. It's again working in multiples of 12, and looks like we need to change this color right here. Make that white. Make this white. Change the text link. All right, so you may have noticed on the left-hand side, there's a little bit of a misalignment issue going on. This text is pressed up against the edge, but actually this image is kind of jutting out because we've added that bordered effect. So you could offset the text, but now it's offset with the top paragraph. So let's just cancel that out. And I'm actually going to add an offset to the image itself. So I've offset it by 10, and now you can see it's flush against the edge. So there we go. This page is really matching up nicely. Let's just assign a color here. And it looks like we have a little bit of a misalignment issue here too, and that's because we have, there's no spacing on the section, and we have a little bit of spacing on this middle text module. So just removing that, and now you can see it's all vertically aligned. Let's add some spacing above just to match our demo example site. Once again, we'll just save and preview. And this is all looking really nice. The only issue is this kind of spacing issue. There's some additional spacing up on ours. And like with the home page, all we need to do is go to look and feel and set the display content to straight on top to fix this. All right, so another additional crucial aspect of Semplice is the ability for your website to look great on any device. So we've actually included a tool for this very thing. It's the responsive tool. If I use it and check out our mobile view, you can see we have some kind of weird spacing issues. The fonts aren't really the right sizing. So you can actually adjust these right in Semplice. I'm going to go to mobile view. And let's just start making our responsive edits. I'm going to size down this title font here. And let's size down the subheader text. Paragraph is pretty good. There's no additional spacing here. We can just tighten up some of the spacing around each element. Typically, I like to shrink things down for mobile just a little bit because they don't need to be so spread out. So I'm just going to shrink all these down. Just about 20 pixels is really all you need. We'll add spacing here because those stack. Shrink this down. And lastly, you'll notice all these are bunching up at the bottom here, and that's because right now they're stacking on top, and we want to go to the section and actually change it to what it is on desktop where it's multi. So all the columns are stacked beside each other. The only thing we need to do is just remove some of the spacing on this logo. Otherwise, it just kind of disappears when we go to the multiple view. So now you'll see, hitting back multiple, you can see the logo showing. This is a little too large, so I'm just going to shrink this text size down. And that's looking good. Let's add some spacing here. And if I want to keep this all in one line or two lines, I can try shrinking it down like this, but it's just a little too small right now. Another solution to kind of get these on separate lines is we could hit Shift Enter to separate them, but I don't want to do that either because that would affect the desktop view. So I'm just going to increase the sizing of the text. And now that solves that problem. Let's add some additional spacing now here. And that's looking pretty good. And then we can just go to our other views. In this case, I'm just going to select here, go to section, and then I can literally just copy the settings I have from mobile. Now all I need to do is just, in this case, I can shrink this down to keep it all in one line. And that's a really quick way you can just quickly grab styles from a different view. just to further speed up this entire process. And it's really just that simple. Okay, so one relatively new feature I'd love to highlight in Semplice is our completely new and redesigned animations editor. So if you'll notice right now, our current page, our about page, it's not really exciting. There's not a lot of movement going on. So let's add some. I'm going to click this animations. It's going to let me know I can switch to custom animations instead of the default scroll reveal. And I'm just going to select my first column. And we have some different animation trigger types. I'm going to just select it to when in view. There's some presets here. Let's just do fade in left. So what's going to happen now is when this element is in the screen, it's going to fade in from the left. Let's just choose a simple fade in for this image. And theoretically, we could go through and select all of these and just assign these same presets. But if you're like me and you like to save time, you can hit this bulk apply button. And this is going to allow you to apply, an animation preset to a bulk of your content. So I'm going to apply this fade in from the left to all of the text modules, and it's just going to automatically assign that to every text module on the page. So if I hit this preview, I can preview the animations on my page. You can see that they're all fading in from left, which, it looks nice, but I want to create a little bit of a variety. So I'm going to go into the settings, and then on each, I'm going to add a delay because I want these to fade in sequence. So I select this step, add a delay of 100 to everything in the middle column. Now I'm going to go over to preview that. So now you can see it's almost like staggering now when it animates. It's not just all coming in at the same time. Let's add a delay of 200 to everything on our far right column. Now this didn't get assigned because it's a social module, so I have to just quickly assign the animation to that. Preview. And there you can see it's a really nice kind of staggered fading in effect, which I really like. Now, last but not least, there's one last feature I want to show you to really complete the look of our site. If you scroll through our homepage and I click through some projects, there's this kind of fading in effect between links. If I click about, it's nice. It's not bad, but I think we can really customize it a lot better. So going over to the Customize tab, I'm going to hit Transitions. And this is where I can actually assign some custom page transitions. And this is going to really make our pages look really cool when we're navigating throughout our site. I'm going to click Activate Transitions. And you can now preview the transitions right here in this area. Let's just try this preset, top to bottom. It's kind of nice. Right to left, I like that one. And then there's also this reveal, which allows you to have like an image in between the page transitions. I'll show you what I mean. I can just set the background color to black and put our logo in there. And when you preview, there's like this little intermediate area where that Semplice logo shows. So that's really cool. Let's just go back to the right to left. And you can also change the easings of the animation, so for some different effects. This is a little bit different. Let's just go back to what we had before. And then you can also adjust the timings. So a lot to play around with. I'm going to hit save. And let's just check out how this looks on our live site. So here we go. Scrolling down, let's click through this project. And boom, we get this really smooth transition now that just looks really cool. Looks like something like a custom website would have. And we just did that with just a few simple clicks. Okay, so another thing I want to show you is how easily you can change the entire layout and look of your work page. So what we're going to do, scrolling down on our existing homepage with our portfolio grid, we have this other module. If you are on Semplice Studio Edition, there's the Advanced Portfolio Grid, which we'll try. But first, let's go to this Versions tab, and I'm actually going to save a new version of our page. So this is a really handy feature if you want to make changes, but also keep a copy of older versions of your page that you can switch back and forth with. Really handy. So now we have our APG grid for Advanced Portfolio Grid. Let's just delete our existing portfolio grid, go to Modules. Let's drag an Advanced Portfolio Grid onto our page. And you can see our empty Advanced Portfolio Grid. I'm going to click Add Pages and Projects. So let's just add all of our projects that we've created from this list. I'm going to hit OK. And you can see this has already generated this like pre-made grid with all of our projects. So you also have the option to change between presets. You have a nice text grid, and this will put all of your projects in this nice like floating text grid format with these nice hover effects. You can also do this split screen, which is really nice to show off your work in this really nice like vertical scrolling format. It's really customizable too. You flip the layouts. You can have them alternate. You can add hover effects. There's all kinds of really cool stuff you can do. But let's change it back to this first one. And I'm going to change, let's move this here first. And right now it's a 2-column split, but there's 3. You can even change it to 4 or just have one single thumbnail, but let's change it back to 2. And you can also change the alignment of your images if you want, or change the sizing. Let's go to title. You can, set the placement of where you want your title to be. I'm just going to have it in the bottom center. Let's adjust our spacing. Assign some text styles. Shrink that down. Change the project type. Shrink that down. You can also change the arrow styling. I'm going to make it this carrot style. And all right, let's add a little bit of a hover effect when you hover over these thumbnails. Let's just go with the default here. And let's have the title fade in from the bottom. I'm going to hit save, and let's preview our homepage. And there we go. There's a really nice portfolio grid slider format with these nice hover effects, and it just infinitely loops. So you can see just how easy it is to really change up your layout with just a few clicks. Let's change it to the text grid style just to give you an idea of what you can do. We can assign some different font stylings here. Let's adjust the spacing. You can even have these separated if you want. If you change it to a horizontal style grid, let's just go back to vertical. And we can assign some nice hover effects, some different options here. Let's change the sizing of the viewport. Let's make it stick to mouse. So now you can see there's a thumbnail. It just kind of hovers and follows the mouse movement. And let's just, yeah, there you go. That's pretty cool. And some other different options here, like you can have the image masked out with the text. Some different options. Okay, save that. Let's preview. See how it looks on our home page. Yeah, that's really cool. It's like a really easy, cool effect. And it wasn't hard to do at all. We can always switch back to our default with the portfolio grid. And it's that simple. All right, well, thanks for joining me on this little tutorial as we recreated this site. As you can see, it's so simple to put together a really great looking portfolio site in a relatively short amount of time. So I encourage you to check Semplice out for yourself, see how easy it is to use, and just let it really take your work and your site to the next level and have fun with it. Just get creative. So once again, you can check it out at semplice.com, and thanks for watching.